You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. And Jim, we are back after the Colts' first loss of the season. Personally, I expected 17-0, so I think the season is over now. It is all for nothing.
Fire
team
everyone.
Has let me down extremely, but no, in all seriousness, it was quite the game out in L.A., and for multiple reasons. And of course, Jim, you know where I'm going. We got to start. A.D. Mitchell, number 10. I've given my reaction a lot here on social media, and I'll get into it on the podcast, of course. But I'll start with you as someone who wasn't there. What was your reaction to the play itself? Because it was incredible. And then the ending, which ultimately, in a 7-point loss, you don't score a touchdown you were supposed to score. That looms large.
So in the moment, I had two reactions. First was as an editor, which I'm going to pat myself on the back for being like, all right, yeah, I'm doing my job first. Because I went immediately and found your story from last year on the Jonathan Taylor, one of these that we had against the Broncos. Shared that within our group, put it up on social media, went and found the video, put that on social media, being like, I can't believe this happened again.
Yeah.
And so that was my first response, was just to do my job. And then the second one was, I can't believe this happened again. But then, okay, so I'll tell you this. I maybe I've become soft. I feel like I have become soft since I've become a dad, because I immediately was like upset or, frustrated with him for doing that. Going, I can't believe he did it. Can't all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then the camera showed me this kid's face, and I'm like, oh man, I feel bad. I feel bad for him. Like, he knows. He knows. Like, what am I going to say? Is anybody going to say, to scold him that he doesn't already know or feel at the moment? So I did. I felt bad for him in that moment, because it wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't anything malicious he was doing. It was just stupid. It was just a stupid decision in the moment. He didn't follow what you said. Chance I could have been telling him is essentially run through the paint, with the ball
letters
in your
and
hands.
logos. Get into the end zone with the letters and the logos.
Exactly. So he didn't follow the advice. I'm not even sure. And the craziest part is, too, this is the part I think I had to be reminded about afterward, and this is the part I'm curious about you. Your reaction to it was, I forgot how ridiculously good a play it was up until he punted the ball through the end zone.
The play was awesome. Incredible. I mean, to recap it, and I'm sure you all have seen it a million times, but the throw that Daniel Jones put out there, it was basically saying, I need my guy to win.
It's a trusty ball. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly like A.D. Mitchell's running right open down a deep route. And so he won the late hands on that play. Incredible. Waited to the last second to throw his hands out there, which for those listening, the late hands means basically if you wait to put your hands out as a receiver, the DB doesn't really know that the ball is coming yet. And so late hands, catches it on Emmanuel Forbes, spins out of that, and then hits the gas because, as we remember, A.D. Mitchell, I believe, was like a 4.3 guy come out of college. So when he's getting, up and down straight line drives, that guy can, I said straight line drives, I'm talking about basketball, straight line routes, that guy can get north and south with the best of them. And so he does that, accelerates. It was supposed to be a 76-yard touchdown, ended up being a 75-yard reception, and then a fumble at the end because he celebrated too early. And I know I've gotten some people who are pushing back on me for saying that in the moment, like, oh, he was showboating, he was celebrating. And here's your confirmation. So Shane Steichen does his Colts roundtable every week. I believe it's every Monday. And so he said in his breakdown of that play, after talking to A.D. Mitchell and all the things that they discussed, he celebrated too early. That's not my words. That is Shane's words. Not that I needed him to tell me that, because I saw the play myself and I know who A.D. Mitchell is and he likes to show off and be that guy. But just for those who were kind of like, oh, was he stretching the ball to stay in bounds? No, he was doing this because he was going to have I just made a great play moment, but a great play, his first career touchdown, ended up being a touchback. And so just a devastating play, a huge moment that loomed large again in that game. And I thought in the moment, Jim, you know how it goes, at least from my perspective as a reporter, you immediately get the binoculars out and you're looking to see, okay, what is the reaction in the moment? And so one of the biggest, I thought most, just powerful or I don't want to say powerful is the right word, like poignant moments was just when he looked up at the Jumbotron, everyone's trying to console him or like, at least they hadn't known yet if it was a touchdown or not. And he looks up at the Jumbotron because he's waiting like everybody else for the refs review. And then the refs hadn't even confirmed it yet, but everyone sees that he didn't have possession. And the crowd erupts and he just drops his head. And it has to be one of the worst feelings in the world. He goes to the sideline. People are trying to dap him up. He can't even raise his hand up. He can't raise his head up. He's just pacing the sidelines. He finally goes over to Reggie Wayne. And everyone, it's kind of like if you have siblings and your sibling's going to get in trouble and you can't react, and it's just awkward because everyone's thinking, dude, you just effed up in the biggest way imaginable. We can't really say anything because you're our teammate. And so they felt for him. Now, granted, that was early third quarter. The game wasn't over to that point, but that was a big mistake that A.D. Mitchell ultimately could not recover from. And so, that was just one of two plays that ultimately, stood out from that game. But I think that one obviously is the one that's going to hurt the most. And it's because it just happened with Jonathan Taylor. And so for it to happen again, Jim, I think that's also an indictment kind of on Shane Steichen. And
this is where I want to go.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was saying, let me spin it forward here now, because if you're Shane Steichen, and we're going to get into this with another player who he's got to figure out something, but for this one, A.D. Mitchell, young player, again, clearly not malicious intent, but did something stupid. And we have you referenced the holding penalty that he has later that cost the Colts another touchdown. What do you do if you're Shane Steichen? How do you handle this situation? I saw you reported yesterday that A.D. Mitchell stood up in front of the team, took full responsibility for what he did, and apologized for it. That's great. That's what you want from a young player like that. However, there are repercussions to your actions. What are they going to be? I guess that's a two-part question. What do you think the Colts are going to do, and what would you do if you were the coach, Shane Steichen, right now? Ooh. Because, like you said, he preached this already because of what happened with Jonathan Taylor, and they didn't listen, or at least the message didn't get through, and it's happened twice on his watch now. So what do you do if you're Shane Steichen?
I think, one, when you look at just the reaction from Shane, at least yesterday, following up with him by A.D. Mitchell, and he was asked point blank, will A.D. Mitchell be active for week 5, meaning will he play? Mm-hmm. And Shane said, we'll go through practice and he's got to earn it. That was his response. This was not he'll be back. He'll be back out there. We're going to just, take it on the chin and, coach him up, love him up. It was, now he did say, I met with him. I told him this will not define who you are as a person or as a player. Yeah. But in reality, Shane, it does define him. Right now it does. Now that can change. Now I'm not saying A.D. Mitchell through his second year so far, who he is right now as a player is all he's ever going to be. But right now, all we have to go off of, the biggest plays of A.D. Mitchell's career have been turnovers. You go back to the double pass last year at the Denver game. And granted, I put that more on Shane. I'm like, why would you put A.D. Mitchell in that situation? But this one can't get excused away on coaching. This is on the player. And so that to me was just a very boneheaded decision, and one that A.D. Mitchell certainly felt after that game. And you could tell in the locker room, there was just this thickness in the air of like, man, we lost. But, talking to him, everyone's thinking, how could you do this again? How could this happen again? And he doesn't have a good answer for it besides, I just made a terrible mistake. And so, that's kind of the real life Shane. Now, if I'm in Shane's shoes, I would consider
Yeah.
benching him.
Yeah, for a
I
game or
really
something?
would. Yeah, just for a
Or a
game.
half?
I'm not
Or
saying
yeah, okay.
that I would. I'm not a fan of like the half game suspension.
That's
I'm like, yeah, if I sit you for a game, it's got to be a full
yeah,
game.
you're right. It's more of a college thing. You're right.
Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah. And so I would lean more towards that because, in
Okay.
my opinion, the way I look at the wide receiver room for the Colts, it's like, one, if Alec Pierce is healthy for next week, AD Mitchell wasn't going to play that much anyway. And if you look at his snap counts up until this past week when Alec Pierce was out, he really wasn't playing that many snaps anyway.
Yeah.
It was only like 12 to 15 snaps a game. I mean, it might have been got up to 20, but it wasn't that many to begin with. And so, assuming Alec Pierce is back in the lineup, I would really heavily think about putting Ashton Doolin at that wide receiver 4 position, because with Ashton Doolin, we don't worry about his effort, his focus level. And then
No.
we can get into this too as well, the blocking, which that just compounded another issue. And when we asked Shane, hey, did you think about benching AD Mitchell during the game after that? And he's like, well, we had our receivers for that game. We were kind of depleted and we had to go with who we had. And I think to a certain extent, when you build a game plan for an entire week, it's very hard to say, okay, this
Yeah.
one player will not be a part of it for the rest of the day. However, going forward, building the game plan without him, I wouldn't be opposed to that. And so the gaff on the touchdown is one thing, but also let's get into this, Jim. Your reaction to the hold, which watching the playback, it's not even close. It is just one of the laziest and worst fundamental plays you'll see for a guy who, yeah, perhaps JT doesn't break that run without that hold.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
at the same time, he probably still gets a first down and you're
For sure.
able to, at that point in the game, it was a tie game and you're driving to try to win the game. And so for that to happen in that moment to that player, you're just thinking, you have now cost us a chance to score 14 points. And again, I don't know if I can forgive you for that without punishing you to some degree. I'm not saying I got to punish you for the rest of the season. It's all over. But again, when it goes back to earning it, feeling like you're focused, all those things, you got to show me something. And so how do you feel about just that block play? And also, how does that compound the conversation further about AD Mitchell? Because if he makes that block, or even if that doesn't happen, perhaps we're looking at it like, you had this gap, but you still won the game.
Yeah, I like I actually kind of like Shane's message on the earn it thing. I just because it falls in line with what he said about Anthony Richardson, frankly, and it's consistent, right? Like, just because you're a young player with talent doesn't mean you get it. Doesn't mean you get to play, right? Like, you
Right.
have to earn it. You have to earn it on the field. You have to earn it with your focus. You have to earn it with your effort. And clearly, Anthony Richardson didn't do all the things that he needed to, at least last year. And I know this year, I think he just got beat by Daniel Jones. But this, now we're with the time with AD Mitchell where he's not giving the focus or the right attention to the details that he needs to be, and that comes with a punishment. So again, you don't want to throw him to the side, like you said. You don't want to throw him to the side for the entire season, but I think a one game, get your head right type of thing is the right way to go, because I think the hold is clearly just fallout from the fumble. Frankly, like, I think his focus was gone. I think his head was somewhere else on that play, and he's not locked in on what his assignment was on that play. And like you said, he gets lazy and doesn't block the way,
He just dragged the guy down.
yeah, maybe
Like-
it was the opposite. Maybe he was just desperate to do something good
That
for his
too.
team.
Yeah.
I don't know what the reaction. Either way, the fumble put him in a bad headspace, it seemed.
Yeah.
And it led to another bad play, another boneheaded play, frankly. Like, he did something that was clearly a penalty. I mean, the ref could have made it more obvious for a referee. Like, there's no Colts fan who who saw that and was like, "Oh, it's a bogus penalty." It was like, "Yeah, okay, that's a flag. You got to bring that back." Like, everyone knows. So, it was you clearly saw one play affect the other. So, maybe Shane should have pulled him, but again, I'm not going to go hindsight too much on Shane. Like you said, he's built a game plan. It's one thing. You don't want to bench the guy after one bad, like, that's not the right message necessarily to send. You want guys to bounce back mentally from mistakes. So I think benching him right in the moment is not necessarily the thing you want to do. Afterward, you talk to him and say, "Hey, listen, there are going to be repercussions for what you did." But yeah, I definitely think one thing led to the other, and it ended up costing the game. I'll tell you this, not the way I transition. I'm just kind of throwing this out there because it popped in my brain. I don't think anyone's happier. Not happier. No one escaped criticism, but maybe more than Daniel Jones because of AD Mitchell's gaffes. Like Daniel Jones threw 2 interceptions, one backbreaking kind of at the end as they were trying to mount a comeback, and I felt like it was like the least talked about quarterback performance in recent memory around the Colts. Frankly, like it wasn't like, and not to say Daniel, I don't know, maybe you want to talk about Daniel Jones now. It wasn't that bad of a game. It really wasn't. He had some great throws too, but I just felt like no one was talking about Daniel Jones after that's all we could be talking. That's all we were talking about for the first 3 weeks of the season. So anyway, it just popped into my head that AD Mitchell he just took the brunt of it for everybody. Well, AD Mitchell and another guy that we're going to talk about here soon too.
Absolutely. And to put a final bow on just the AD Mitchell discussion,
Yeah.
and then we'll pivot to Daniel Jones and certainly Xavien Howard because, brother, you ain't off the hook either. But the pushback I get from some fans, and it's valid to a degree, is like, well, JT made the same mistake, so he wasn't benched. Why should AD Mitchell be benched? And I think I look at it through two lenses. One, on one side, I think the fans are kind of right to a degree where they're like, look, JT made that mistake and it cost us a playoff berth. Where this one, it's early in the year. We don't know yet.
It might still.
Yeah. Exactly. But I think it's more like in your face. Like when JT did it, their season was effectively over at that point. After that happened, after that game, after that loss. And I mean, it's hard to forgive that. So I understand that like the mistake levels, at least as we sit here today and don't know if the Colts will make the playoffs. They have still a really good chance to do so. We don't know if like the fallout is as severe. However, the reason why I am more inclined to give JT grace, or at least more grace than AD Mitchell, is because JT unquestionably has been a net positive for this team. He is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He was already a first-team All-Pro, top 5 player in the position, and honestly, it was very shocking that JT made that mistake because he is known as being one of the smarter players, really smarter people you ever have in the locker room. And the guy talks about going to space one day after his career. He's a very cerebral guy. For AD Mitchell, his resume couldn't hold a candle to JT's. And so when you look at his career so far, the biggest plays, like I said earlier on this podcast, are the gaffes. They are the miscues. Even last year against the Jets when he caught a long pass, had a chance to score, he cut back for no reason and got shoestring tackled. And it's like, you can't get out of your own way. And so if they sat him, if they punish him, if they want to try to make an example out of whatever happened throughout that game for AD Mitchell, I would not blame them at all because at some point, the talent and the potential, it's useless if you can't stay focused enough to reach it. And that's the next step for AD Mitchell. So, I will say, a lot of his teammates had his back. Michael Pittman Jr., probably the most passionate, saying like, hey, I've had moments in my career where I wish I had to play back. And he mentioned, a few examples even of his own, career. And he talked about one play, I believe it was Buffalo playoff game. He mentioned how he didn't catch a pass from Phillip Rivers, and he was mad that might have cost him a playoff win. He was like, I had to sit and think about that for a long time. And so this is a guy who's been at least in similar shoes, but we told you, Shane told you, don't do this, and you did it anyway, and it cost you. So I'm very curious to hear from, I think beyond who we've heard from already, Reggie Wayne. I know Reggie Wayne doesn't speak this week to us in the media, but next week when assistant coaches talk, you can bet your top dollar we will all be standing there like, hey, you advocated for AD Mitchell to be brought here. What do you have to say for your second-round pick through 2 seasons so far who hasn't done much? So that is certainly something to think about. But as far as the rest of the offense, Jim, Daniel Jones, I thought he had more of like a Daniel Jones day that we would expect from a guy like him. The turnovers, some good, obviously more bad than good, I think, because of the turnovers being such a big part of that game. But I wasn't like, I didn't leave that game thinking like Daniel Jones is a huge issue for this team. I left that game thinking like, man, there are a couple of throws you wish you had back that looked like Daniel Jones of old, especially that first interception because it was kind of short. I'm like, you got to put the ball out there for AD Mitchell. But I also thought that he kind of gave him a chance there too. And if AD Mitchell scores a touchdown, are we talking about a different outcome? We're talking about them being 4-0. I don't know, but I thought Daniel Jones, he struggled with the pressure he got. The offensive line did not look as good. But overall, Jim, what'd you think of Danny Dimes, who coming into that game had played about as well as any quarterback in the league?
Yeah, I think you see the main concern. I was listening to a lot of people talk about Daniel Jones and what's been good and what's been not so good through the first 3 weeks. And I think what we saw in week 4 was what people had highlighted was the not so good, which was that Daniel Jones under pressure is still a problem. Like, and to be fair, a lot of quarterbacks under pressure are still a problem, and so they need to do a better job protecting him. We talked before this podcast. We're going to hit the offensive line. It didn't perform up to the standards that you would want them to. With They're down a guy, obviously, so that was an issue. And obviously, this is a great defensive line that the Rams had. Jared Verse is like, man, is he fun to watch? But
Yeah.
which we can get into with the Latu Latu comparison a little bit later. But yeah, I think that was my main critique of Daniel Jones was that under pressure he made some poor decisions. The interception at the end. I've seen some people kind of excuse saying he's trying to make a play, trying to lead them back. They're down by a touchdown. It's the end of the game, trying to force something. I don't really give him that grace, to be honest with you. I don't understand what he thought he saw on that particular coverage. There was a safety over the top of that thing the whole time. It was underthrown ball. Could have been picked off by the corner, frankly, if the safety didn't get it. Like, it just wasn't a good throw. It was a bad decision. And I do worry that would, like you said, this was the Daniel Jones from at least that play. This was the Daniel Jones from the Giants that we had seen, which was constantly under pressure and consistently making poor decisions when under pressure. So it's something to keep an eye on. I'm by far not out on Daniel Jones. This is not me like calling for Anthony Richardson by any means. It's just saying like, okay, like let's make sure we're getting the ball out quick because he was doing that so well. Obviously, you and Ted Wynn broke that down a couple weeks ago. How good a job that Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones were doing about making quick decisions, getting the ball out fast, so that he wasn't having to make decisions under duress because he's just not good at it. And again, most quarterbacks aren't. You don't make good decisions under pressure. But Daniel Jones makes some backbreaking decisions under pressure and has throughout his career. He has in his past been a turnover machine and a negative play machine. And he's done a great job this year at limiting those plays. He hasn't taken many sacks. Those were the first 2 interceptions of the season that he threw. So again, I'm not going to dump on Daniel Jones, but it wasn't a good game. It wasn't at him at his best. And I think there were outside factors that were part of that, but you'd like to see him respond this week in a much more gettable game against the Raiders, I would say. But obviously that'll be they have it. Max Crosby's still a problem, so
Absolutely.
we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he responds. Again, we don't have to spend a ton of time on Daniel Jones. I just wanted to highlight it because if in a couple of weeks we're like, something's going wrong with this Daniel Jones thing, this will have been the start of it.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, unlocking the power of Thinkorswim, the award-winning trading platforms loaded with features that let you dive deeper into the market. Visualize your trades in a new light on Thinkorswim desktop with robust charting and analysis tools, all while you uncover new opportunities with up-to-the-minute market news and insights. Thinkorswim is available on desktop, web, and mobile to meet you where you are. It's built by the trading obsessed to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
Yeah, the inflection point. I think I might have mentioned, I think maybe 1 or 2 sentences of Daniel Jones in my post-game story because so much of it was filled with the issues from A.D. Mitchell and Xavien Howard, which we'll get to next.
Yeah.
But to put a bow on the Daniel Jones conversation, I do think that a lot of that had to do with the offensive line. Bernhard Raimann has to be much better. I
Yeah.
get that you're going up against Jared Verse and you're facing one of the best defensive ends in the league, but man, he was repeatedly beat throughout that game and also gave up a lot of I want to say Bernie might have been flagged for 2 penalties, 2 of their 11 penalties. And so just a sloppy game overall for this team from a penalty
Yeah.
standpoint, from a gaff standpoint with AD Mitchell, and then from the turnover aspect. Now, to pivot away from, those who we've mentioned already deserving of some blame, if there was like a pie chart for this, outside of AD Mitchell, I think one of the biggest culprits or biggest issues throughout this game, which is not as simple as a fix, I think, when it comes to AD Mitchell. Like, it's like, okay, if Alec Pierce is back, it's fine. AD Mitchell barely has to play. We're okay. But for Xavien Howard, man,
Yeah.
I don't know what the options are, but I think one of them should be exploring whether or not you bench him, because that performance was really bad, Jim. And it's becoming kind of like a theme where every team just figures out where Xavien Howard is lined up, and and they say, we'll
We
just
said
go
it
at
last
this
week.
guy. Yes.
This was going to happen. We did.
Yes.
We talked about it in this podcast. We said this is what Sean McVay does, and this is going to be a problem for the Colts, and it was.
Yeah.
So how are they going to fix it? And I'm legitimately asking you, like, what do you do? Because we'll get into exactly why you and I think Xavien Howard shouldn't be playing anymore. It's not just poor performance, but I do want to really quickly ask you, like, what are the options? What can the Colts realistically do
All right.
to fill his spot right now?
Step one, remember that you have 11 players on the field. Did we glossed
Okay.
over that fact before the podcast started? I'm sorry. But yes, you need 11 players on the field. I'm thinking of that Tutu Atwell touchdown. I'm thinking I can't put that one on Xavien Howard by himself, because you got to have 11 players out there, which Shane admitted, hey, that's his fault. I don't know if that's like a assistant coach thing, if that's a player thing. No one called timeout. That is a bad look for this team to compound your secondary issues by not having another defensive back out there on the biggest play of the game-winning play for the Rams. Now, getting back to Xavien Howard, I would consider benching him and starting Mekhi Blackman.
Okay.
Or even, hey, do I go to Mekhi Blackman and then make Jonathan Edwards my next man up, the undrafted rookie? So those would be some serious discussions I had, because it's gotten to the point, at least in my opinion, where at least against the Rams, it could not get any worse.
Nope.
It couldn't get any worse than that. I mean, Puka Nacua, as great as he is, he feasted on Xavien Howard. And then, honestly, when there were the few times where Xavien Howard wasn't matched up against Puka and he's matched up against Devontae Adams then started getting some catches and making some plays. And so, to me, it's very hard to justify keeping Xavien Howard out there after that sort of performance. I get that he has a relationship with Lou Anarumo, and his resume since entering the NFL, I think he has like the most interceptions and all that type of stuff. All that's great, but for all the talk about him being a great player, I think that should be used in the past tense. He is no longer a great player. He is no longer an all-pro. He might not, honestly, looking at the tape, he's no longer a starter in the NFL. That's what the vibe that I'm getting from him. And then beyond that, Jim, I think when he did give up some catches, a lot of catches throughout that game, who's rallying to the ball? Because if you watch some of these plays back, man, it's not him. It's his teammates. And so I think that is also a bit concerning, Jim, when you look at him finishing plays that he's already kind of given up.
It's the effort, man. Like, honest to God, like, I don't watch it on TV or watch it from the press box. Like, it's hard. You don't want to read body language too much. There's something to be said. Like, you talked about AD Mitchell. You saw him throw his head down. You saw the way he wasn't reacting to teammates. Like that, you can read stuff off of that, right? Like, so I want to be careful with that. But I'm telling you, man, you go back and watch some of the highlights. And I know you and I both have, watching Xavien Howard in coverage. It's like the effort is fine before the throw, but once he gets beat, it's like he thinks the play is over. He doesn't seem interested in making a tackle. He's kind of lollygagging after it. If he sees the safety's there, like, if there's a broken tackle, he's not going to be in position to help. Like, it looked like, it honestly kind of looked like the poor game kind of broke his spirit throughout. Like, he was just like, I maybe there's something to this as like a veteran where you're just like, I'm not the guy that I used to be, and it's bumming me out, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Xavien Howard, like you said, we used to be a star in this league, and now he can't cover anybody. At least the last couple of weeks, he's just been a complete liability in this defense. I don't blame. This is not me trying to blame the Colts for putting him out there. They were put in a bad spot with some of the injuries they had.
Yeah, they were super banged up.
Lou knows him. Like, you want to go with guys you trust and know your scheme. Like, I don't think this has been a question of like, oh, he's blowing coverages or oh, he's not. He doesn't know where to be. It's just it's just gone, man.
Can I
Like, it doesn't
physically
look.
do it? Yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't look like he has it anymore, which is not. That's not a problem with Xavien Howard. The problem, I mean, like, that's okay. That's the Colts have to address that. He just doesn't have the talent anymore. But the real problem the Colts have to address is, are you finishing? Like, are you still trying to be a competitive NFL player throughout the entire play? Because I don't think there's a single defensive coordinator in the league who would tolerate some of the things that we saw from Xavien Howard. I think the film breakdown is going to be tough. I think I saw our friend Stephen Holder say that exact thing on X, which is to say that I don't know how you defend yourself after some of those effort lapses. Again, to me, maybe I'm wrong. It just looked like he kind of quit on some plays.
Yeah, and that's a word you never want to hear is quit or effort, things that you never want to hear a question as an athlete. And we had a chance to catch up with Xavien Howard after the game, and he was very short with us, which I expect. I mean, who wants to stand there and have to answer for all their like bad performances? But he didn't say much. And when I just thought I asked him, hey, how would you assess your own performance? And he told me something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much what he said, not to my ability. And so, okay, if you're not going to be at your ability, then they have to make another decision to perhaps move on from you or, explore other options, because that is not sustainable. That will lead to more losses. And so, yeah, he might have felt like he kind of flew under the radar because of just the gravity of the A.D. Mitchell play and the amount of eyes that were on it. I mean, we even had an extra story on it ourselves, and that was a big part of my post-game story. And I'm sure they showed it all over every single ESPN, highlight reel and every TV show. But for all the praise that was surely given to Puka Nacua, who might be, he might be in the running for NFC Offensive Player of the Week this upcoming week, it's deserved because he went off against him. And I mean, you look at the touchdown catch that he had, 4th and 2 from the 9-yard line, and he beats Xavien Howard easily and goes in for, at that point in time, the game-tying touchdown. So, I don't know how to feel about Xavien Howard other than the fact that you got to explore something else. I mean, yes, I get that he was like your emergency plan and kind of like your break glass if needed guy, but the glass has been broken and he is no longer the player that you need him to be going forward. So
just to highlight it too.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not just the Rams game. Like, we talked about this after the Broncos game. Like, this was a problem. They went after him multiple times. Like, anyway, it was frustrating to watch because it was so predictable. We went watching.
Oh, absolutely.
What the Rams were doing. Like, there were a couple of times where McVay, like, you saw the coverage. You see Howard is split out right in his side, and Puka Nacua is in the slot or either on the other side, the left of the defense, and then he motions across. Once essentially Matthew Stafford knows it's man coverage and knows he's going to get a one-on-one matchup with Xavien Howard, and so many times he didn't even look anywhere else. Like, Matthew Stafford is the king of like no-look passes, looking the other way, drawing safeties away. There were times when it was Xavien Howard one-on-one with Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams. He didn't look anywhere else. He didn't need to. There's no reason to mess with the defense. And this is part of the Lou Anarumo thing, right? It's like, you're not going to sit back in zone. We're not going to sit back and just let guys come at us. We're going to attack. So that sometimes comes with some blitzes, and that sometimes comes with just leaving guys in man coverage. And if you don't have the horses, well, you saw what happened. That's what it looked like on Sunday.
Exactly. And so now that we've hit on like all of the issues, the A.D. Mitchell miscues, the inexcusable 10-man on the field for the Rams touchdown, the struggles with the offensive line, Xavien Howard, et cetera, one silver lining for this game, and I'm not trolling, I promise, I'm being for real.
Yeah.
The pass rush. Like Latu, Aditomo Adebawore also had a big game. I thought that they looked much better up front than they had in weeks past, because we had been asking, like, where is this pass rush? How are we going to make the quarterback uncomfortable? They made some plays, forced some turnovers there. Mike Hilton even got in on an exchange, I thought. From, I believe it was Kyron Williams in on that play with Matthew Stafford, where Mike Hilton kind of just jumped the handoff. And so they made some plays in that backfield. So when you look at the performance that Latu had, Jim, opposite of Jared Verse, how'd you feel about that? Just knowing that I think Latu kind of needed a game like that.
It was like low key, and you had mentioned this on the podcast, I think, but last week. It's kind of like low key a big game for Latu, just because he's going up against the guy that Chris Ballard didn't pick, right? He said, "I'm taking the best damn pass rusher in the draft in Latu,"
Yeah.
and Jared Verse was still on the board. And Jared Verse, to this point in their careers, has had the better career. Super early, not calling it yet, but I think Latu needed to prove something. And I'm looking at this on True Media right now. He had 9 pressures in that game, which is the second most any pass rusher has had in a game this season. The most is Micah Parsons against his phone the Cowboys the other night. He had 10. So there's Jonathan Cooper had 10, and then Latu's tied with 3 other pass rushers, including Aiden Hutchinson and Will Anderson Jr., 2 of the best in the NFL, with 9 pressures in one single game. So that was like peak. That was peak Latu. As a team, they got pressure on 45% of the Rams dropbacks, which was their highest rate of the season. They didn't blitz a ton. It was only 20%. So this was just they're generating pressure with their guys. We're going to beat you guys one-on-one, which is what the Colts need to be able to do because they've invested so much in that pass rush. And when you have an offensive line that is as vulnerable and as banged up as the Rams were, you have to be able to do it. And going back to the last part of our conversation, this helps hide your holes in the secondary. Doesn't obviously cover them all up. We saw what happened with Xavien Howard. But if you're not getting a pass rush, I mean, Stafford would have gone for 500 yards, frankly. He carved them up anyway, but you have to get a pass rush. You have to be able to get, especially a guy like Matthew Stafford, you have to be able to get him off his spot. If you just let him sit in the pocket, he's gonna kill you. So I thought they did a really, really good job of moving him off his spot consistently. Stafford still is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and just made some great throws. But Latu especially was the impact player the Colts drafted him to be and then need him to be this year because he needs to take that step. And this has been a good sign so far, frankly, man. Like he's been really, really good in the 3 games that he's played, particularly these last 2.
Absolutely. And that is a guy who you need him to be that player. I mean, first round pick, you didn't invest a whole lot as far as like free agency money into bringing in another pass rusher because you expected Latu to make a jump. And so the question now becomes, is this the beginning of something? Because we've seen flashes from Latu, but we haven't seen that sustained week-to-week dominance or disruptiveness. Now, granted, I'll give him credit for coming close. He did get his first sack this past Sunday against the Rams. It's like, can you continue to be disruptive, but also productive when it comes to just finishing those plays? Because as much as we talk about, pressures and, quarterback hits and knockdowns, we look at the great ones and we say, how many sacks did you have? And how many times did you get the quarterback on the ground? I thought Latu was very dominant against the Rams. And so can that continue against the Raiders who, and they're struggling. They're 1-3.
Oh,
but Geno Smith.
Brutal offensive line.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Terrible offensive line. But Geno Smith is still a quarterback who he doesn't scare me like, Matthew Stafford would. I don't think anybody would ever say that out of their mouth, but he's still capable of playing at a high level if you give him too much time. He's proven himself, I think, throughout his career to still be like a, top 15 quarterback, give or take, on any given day. So what does that look like for Latu? Can you make sure that you make his life miserable, coming up here? And then looking at just the way the schedule works out, you're 3-1 with your next 2 games at home against the Raiders and the Cardinals. Like those teams aren't, that isn't like the craziest slate in the world. You know what I mean? Like none of those teams scare me. The Raiders, like I mentioned, they're bad. They're banged up. I think they lost their left tackle in that game last week against the Bears. And so we'll see what their status is going forward. And you look at the Cardinals, 2 weeks from now, they're an offense that you still have a lot of questions about. Marvin Harrison Jr., probably chief among them. But I thought that was a game where if it weren't for so many self-inflicted mistakes, we would probably been talking to Latu and making him more of a center focus of what he had done because I didn't necessarily feel bad for him. I don't really feel bad for like any athletes unless you get like injured or something like that. But it's like talking to him, I'm like, man, I know you're telling us all this great stuff about, how you were effective, how good it felt to get out there and perform, your pass rush as a whole, Adi Tamawa getting in on the action as well. And you're standing there having to answer like, oh, by the way, did you say anything to A.D. Mitchell? Did you pick him up? Did you help him? And that was so much of the conversation where the defensive performance, the good part, the pass rush, because the secondary is a mess, but the pass rush, I thought they finally got that going and then it kind of became a footnote. So I'm not like out on lose defense. I know some people were like, oh my gosh, like they gave up so many yards against the Rams. The Rams are good. They're a very good team.
27 points is nothing. It's not the goal, but you shouldn't be ashamed of it.
Exactly.
Either.
And granted, if you get out of your own way, perhaps you're walking out of there with a 30-27 victory or something like that, or you're walking out of there still undefeated. So I'm not like, again, panicking right now. It's a painful loss. It is certainly one that, as Jim and I laid out in my story after the game, like you're not going to feel optimistic about it, right afterwards. But when you go back and watch the tape and you look at all the mistakes, there were some good parts in there, particularly when it came to that defensive pass rush. So that's kind of where I'm at, Jim. And again, you're in good shape. I didn't expect you to run the table. I didn't, you got to lose at some point. But and then maybe losing in that fashion will really kind of get your attention because you got lucky. I mean, some people are telling me, oh, the Colts could have been 4-0 if it weren't for A.D. Mitchell. We could also be 2-2.
Exactly.
If it weren't for the Broncos acting like idiots on the last play of the game in that field goal with Spencer Schrader. So there's a lot to obviously discuss this upcoming week. But I'll end it with this, Jim, and feel free to weigh in. I think this is an inflection point in this early season for Shane Steichen and his coaching staff and this new era they're trying to establish of Colts football. Let me backtrack. Maybe not new era, but like new standard for this season. Where do you go from here? After the A.D. Mitchell, miscues, after the Xavien Howard struggles, those two issues are probably top of mind for me, but like, how do you address those going forward as you try to, bounce back and keep this promising season on the rails?
The only thing I'm going to say to add to that is that Shane Steichen, the offensive mind, offensive play caller, for the most part, I have no questions. He's been great. We know he was great with the Eagles. He has had great moments with the Colts, Gardner Minshew. Obviously, last year wasn't perfect, but for the most part, he's been great. Where we have had questions about Shane Steichen is Shane Steichen, the head coach. How he handled the Anthony Richardson situation wasn't great. How the messaging has never been that great. He has another opportunity now to put his stamp on this team early in the season, as you said, when things are going well. First time they've really hit adversity in the regular season. Let's see how he responds to it. I'm not even saying there's a right or wrong answer to this. Exactly. I'm just interested to see what he does because this is the first real bump in the road for the season. So I'm fascinated to see how this plays out and what he decides needs to be done for this team so they can continue on the trajectory they're on. Absolutely. So that's all we have for this week's episode. We will check in with you all after week 5. Wow, we're already a month into the season, Jim. It feels crazy to say that. So yeah, the Raiders are coming to town. My dad's a Raiders fan, so if you see him around, boo him, please, because he's getting on my nerves already about this matchup. So until next time, my friends, we will talk to you all very, very soon.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to drive smarter with high-tech features and excellent reliability. Check out the Honda Civic, Accord, or HR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.99% APR on a 2026 Civic or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Accord or 2026 HR-V.
See dealer for financing details. Exclude Civic SI and Type R.